When it comes to electrified hybrid vehicles, Toyota has long been considered the king with over 25 years of experience with the introduction of the original Prius back in 2000. Now, of course, when Toyota finally wanted to enter the fully electric SUV space, they did so with the very oddly named BZ4X back in 2021. It launched with pretty mediocre range figures, even slower charging figures, and average power. So for 2026, Toyota is giving the BZ4X its first significant refresh. And as you can see, it's also including a name change, because this right here is the 2026 Toyota BZ. It essentially gets an updated look on the outside, it gets more range and power underneath the hood, and it gets an updated interior with a larger 14-inch touchscreen. So today we're actually out here in Plano, Texas, because we're finally able to get behind the wheel of the updated Toyota BZ. And the big question I want answered, has Toyota managed to make enough changes to their first fully electric production vehicle to make this car truly competitive? Stay tuned to find out. Now, one of the big significant upgrades for 2026 is what's going on underneath the hood. Sadly, as you can see, there is still no front trunk storage space, even though this vehicle is continued to be built on a dedicated EV architecture, which Toyota calls eTNGA. But we get a significant improvement in terms of the power outputs, because Toyota has put basically more powerful and upgraded electric motors in the front and in the rear. You can still take your pick between either a single motor front wheel drive or a dual motor all wheel drive. Toyota also offers a choice of two different battery sizes. The smaller battery pack is around 57 kilowatt hours. This, however, has the larger battery pack measuring 74.7. So it's around 3 to 4 kilowatt hours larger versus the pre-refreshed model. And I mentioned earlier, significant upgrades in power. So a single motor front wheel drive version offers up to 221 horsepower now. That's up from 201, so that's 20 more horsepower. However, the all-wheel drive version gets a huge bump. We're talking 338 horsepower. That's up from 214 in the pre-refresh model. So this actually now has more horsepower versus the luxury equivalent, the RZ450e, which Lexus has responded with an even more powerful version of the RZ to compete. Now, because it has almost 340 horsepower, this is good for Toyota claims 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. Top speed should be around 149 miles an hour. And in terms of the range, remember that's a 74.7 kilowatt hour battery pack. The longest range model is a front wheel drive XLE Plus, offering up to 314 miles. This, however, drops the range to 278, which is still a nice improvement over the 222 that we had on last year's Limited, because remember, it had a smaller battery pack. It was a little bit less efficient. Charging speeds have also improved because there's now an 11 kilowatt onboard charger, and this vehicle can basically charge from 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes. The curb weight of this car is right around 4,500 pounds, so it has gained around 100 pounds of weight compared to the pre-refreshed model. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here, which, as you can see, is still continued to be held up by a prop rod, and talk about the exterior styling. This color that I'm showing you for 2026 is technically new for the BZ. It's called Blueprint, which is a very, very dark blue here in this bright Texas sunshine or sunlight. You can barely tell that it's blue. It almost looks black in certain lights, but you can see it's adopted their new corporate face for a lot of their EVs that we first saw on the Toyota Prius with the hammerhead design for the full LED headlights. You have an LED daytime running light at the top here. There are also the LED turn signals. It has that prerequisite LED light bar that goes across the center where there's kind of like a makeshift Toyota grille, of course. And then the headlights are now divorced. So they're actually a little bit lower, right below the actual daytime running light. They are a projector, low and high beam with this kind of black painted portion here. The front fascia, you can see, it's just been smoothed out a little bit. It also has some functional air intake openings. This is an unpainted plastic cladding area here, but this limited trim includes 360 camera, integrated parking sensors, and then of course you get Toyota's Safety Sense 3.0, which is technically not their latest system. Lexus has just introduced a 4.0 version. But overall, I think the refresh is very successful, especially in this dark blue color. It's really nice how Toyota is finally offering a blue. When the BZ first launched as the BZ4X, which kind of sounded like a fax machine, they never even offered a blue exterior color. Now, moving around the side profile, this is a heavy refresh, so overall dimensions haven't changed. It has a 112.2-inch wheelbase with a 184.7-inch overall length. This is about the same size as the Toyota RAV4. Actually, it's a little bit longer in the length and in the wheelbase. So it's kind of the right size compact SUV. If you want an electric RAV4, you're essentially going to be looking at the Toyota BZ. In terms of the wheels, as you can see, these are the upgraded 20-inch wheels that you get with the limited trim. Lower trims will have an 18-inch wheel, which will give you a little bit better range figures. This is riding on a 220 or 235 by 50 R20 inch tire. You have all disc brakes, independent suspension, around 8.2 inches of ground clearance, which actually surprises me, but at the same time, Subaru has their version called the Solterra, which also has around 8.2 inches of ground clearance. The fenders, as you can see here, on this particular color, are still gloss black painted. Now, Toyota had the gloss black painted fenders on the pre-refreshed BZ, but if you get another color, they have a gray color, a white color, you'll actually get a color matched fender, but the blue and the supersonic red includes the black painted fenders. And Toyota said they did that because aesthetically, they think it looks better. Now, this blue is so dark that it almost looks black, so I kind of see that working, although I saw the red and I thought the red needed the color keyed fenders. Now, looking at the charge port door, Toyota actually moved it from the driver's side to the passenger side, and that's because they have adopted the NACS plug, as you can see. This is basically going to become the North American charging standard. It allows this car to have access to Tesla superchargers. And like I said, 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes with an 11 kilowatt onboard charger. That's almost twice as fast as the previous pre-refresh model. So I'm glad to see Toyota has improved the range, the charging, and the power. Now you can see the mirrors are black painted. They are power folding, 360 camera, integrated turn signals, of course. And then above here on the roof, you have a panoramic glass roof as well. Although it doesn't actually open up to vent air, there is a retractable sunshade, so you don't have to deal with the sun beating down on you if you don't want the sun on you. There's also these integrated low profile roof rails. And then following me over to the rear, you can see the design looks pretty similar. This is kind of where I'm noticing there aren't really too many changes to talk about. You still kind of have this like dual spoiler arrangement where you have this kind of dual wing design here at the upper portion of the tailgate. It has a very steeply raked back window, which negates the need for a rear window wiper. At least that's what Toyota says. I would have preferred to see that them still put a rear window wiper. You have another low profile spoiler here, and then you can see the taillights are slightly refreshed. They have that, trendy full length LED light bar, and then you have LED turn signals, brake lights, of course. There's the new BZ badge here. So remember, there's no more 4X, it's just BZ, which Toyota says is what people were calling it anyways. You also have their new Beyond Zero badge here, BEV, battery electric vehicle, of course, with the all-wheel drive badge. And then of course, there's the limited badge there. So there's a little bit too much badging going on back here. But overall, I'm still pretty much a fan of this vehicle, but they just showed us the BZ Woodland, which I actually think looks even better from the rear profile. Now, of course, let's talk about the cargo area. This vehicle does come with a power actuated liftgate, which has their hands-free functionality. And as you can see, the cargo figures they haven't really changed. You have around 27 cubic feet of total storage space with the back seats up. It actually drops down to 25 when you have the upgraded JBL sound system. At least that's what Toyota says. If you look underneath the floor here, there is actually an underfloor storage area, no spare tire, but there's room there for your mobile charger that's included with the vehicle, which is nice. If you fold down the seats, which there's no actual release handle here, you have to basically do it from right there, but you get a total of around 57 cubic feet of space with all the seats folded. That's about 15 cubic feet less versus what you're going to get from like a RAV4, for example. So kind of keep that in mind. The sloping roof line of this vehicle does eat into your cargo capacity, but it's still relatively usable, and it's about on par with a lot of its other electric SUV rivals. Now moving on to the interior of the updated 2026 Toyota BZ. Now first of all, this one that we're showing you is the fully loaded limited trim. It does come with a Softex synthetic leather material, which has contrast stitching and piping. This is the black Softex interior. They also offer a light gray, which I think the light gray would have looked a lot better with the blueprint exterior. These seats are also heated and ventilated, and you also have a 12-way power driver's seat over here, along with a 2-person memory. So that's a really nice touch to have. You have to go for the limited trim, however, if you want the heated and cooled seats with the memory function, which doesn't surprise me. This is the most fully loaded version. Now, getting inside, you can see the step-in height is nice and easy because it has a little over 8 inches of ground clearance as I shut the door. The door also has a nice solid sounding thunk. Now here's the key fob for the vehicle. You can see this is Toyota's latest intelligent access key. It is a relatively good size, has lots of buttons on it, or not a lot, it's just 4 buttons. Lock, unlock, power liftgate, and then a panic function. I believe Toyota also offers your phone as a key if you're an owner, and you can also access it through the Toyota Connected Services app through your smartphone. Starting the vehicle up, start-stop button hasn't really moved. When you push that with your foot on the brake, the vehicle will essentially just come to life. It'll say ready in the instrument panel that sits kind of high in the dash. And remember, this is a fully electric vehicle, so there's no engine starter noise whatsoever. And then the center screen has been upgraded. So previously, Toyota offered a choice between either an 8-inch display on the base trims or a bigger 12.3. All of them, including the base, now have the large 14-inch touchscreen, which includes wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This screen essentially looks like it was ripped out of a Lexus because it has the dual dials here for the dual zone temperature control with a screen. This lower portion always stays the climate. The upper portion actually always stays either the infotainment, the native system, or the wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. You can also expand that to take up the entire screen, where it gets rid of the native shortcut buttons off to the side. But overall, this is definitely much more futuristic. It's more befitting of a fully electric vehicle, and I love the size of the screen along with the actual knobs for the climate and for the audio controls. Now, looking at the door panels, let's go ahead and talk about that really quick. You have a soft touch injection molded plastic up here. This area here is not soft touch, but it has a really nice texture to it. Down here you can see you have that soft text where it's nice and padded where you rest your elbows. There's kind of a gray painted plastic door handle. And then your window controls there, one touch for all four. They have the typical Toyota high quality feel. They're also illuminated. And you also have your mirror controls and door locks, which is right next to them. Down at the lower portion of the doors, they are hard touch plastic with additional storage. So overall, it's pretty much what I expect in this class of vehicle for material quality. The steering wheel, you can see, hasn't really changed. It's still the same wheel that we saw in the previous model, and it's also found in a Prius. You have a manual tilt and telescoping adjustment, and you also have these new paddle shifters that control your different levels of regen. There's 4 different levels of regen, but there's still no true one-pedal drive where it will take you down to a full stop. Toyota says that they don't feel the need to do that, but instead they give you 4 different levels, so there's a lot of adjustability there. Lots of controls, of course, for the Toyota Safety Sense 3.0. Your audio controls are here, and then if you're looking at the dash, you're going to notice Toyota has basically simplified the look, because the pre-refresh model had a lot of additional plastic panels that kind of created this almost like a line that led up to the instrument panel that floats here. That's still a 7-inch display. They've gotten rid of all those cheap plastic pieces, and it just looks a lot better. And you also have upgraded materials, where this is now a soft touch injection molded plastic, and this right here is hard touch plastic. But what I would have liked is if Toyota would have made this screen bigger. I think 7 inches is a little bit small. I think a 12.3 or an 11-inch display would have been better. But this kind of negates the need for a head-up display, because it puts your information for your speed basically right up in your line of sight, which is nice. Then looking at the rest of the dash, you can see this is also soft touch over here. Soft touch over here. The vents are also, they've been redesigned, but you can see they're still a traditional manual style where you can adjust it via these little tabs. And you also, what you're going to find in the center console are dual wireless phone charging pads. It fits my iPhone 16 Pro Max perfectly. And then over here you can see more additional buttons. You push that, you can see that's your full 360 camera, where it'll give you a perimeter scan, although that view is a little bit useless. It's kind of just there for a little party trick. If I put the vehicle in reverse, you can see there's your backup camera with your trajectory, your top-down view. It's got cross-traffic braking, of course. And it also just has a pretty good quality and resolution. I like how it takes up basically the entire widescreen portion of the screen, so that's nice. There is no more power mode for this vehicle, which was kind of like their sport mode. Instead, you just have an eco button where you can turn that on and off if you want to get better range. There's also an X mode here, which is pretty similar to what Subaru does. It shows its Subaru routes. It shows there's a deep snow and mud. Then there's a snow and dirt, and then there's also like a grip control feature where you can use this toggle to control the software and the programming of the traction control system. That's, of course, if you're planning to go off-roading, but it's basically a piece of technology that Subaru contributed with the basically the software of this vehicle. This is the shifter, of course, to control the transmission I mentioned earlier. You basically push this down, rotate it to the left to go to reverse, to the right to go to drive, push the P button to go to park. It's pretty self-explanatory. You also have additional storage down here, which is nice. Cup holders, of course. I love how there's no piano black plastic here, which is going to be much more durable. You don't have to sit there and clean it up all the time. There's a nice padded center console here, which also opens up in 2 different ways. So you can open it up from the driver and from the passenger side. It looks like no additional power outlets in there. The power outlets, I believe, are going to be located down here, which is kind of nicely tucked away, which I really appreciate. And then over here, there's no glove box, and that's because this vehicle is offered with a radiant knee heater. So there's basically a pad here that heats up, that provides heat when you don't want to turn on the heater if you're driving this vehicle in the cold. I would have preferred that Toyota, if you don't get that feature, offer a glove box, but they still don't do that, unfortunately. The rest of the interior, you can see the dash, or the headliner, is a woven material. You have this big panoramic glass roof, which doesn't open up to vent air, but it does have a retractable shade. And then you also have an auto-dimming frameless rearview mirror, which also includes a digital camera function, which is nice. And if you're an audiophile, I highly recommend the JBL sound system. It basically takes the standard 6-speaker sound system and makes it pretty much on par with the rest of the class for stereo system. So overall, the interior is definitely a nice upgrade in terms of the tech. They've upgraded the materials. They've added more charging solution and storage. And the seats are also still very comfortable and supportive. So I think for the majority of people who are looking for this as a daily driver, you're going to be liking the updates that Toyota has made. But let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area of this vehicle, because it is a compact SUV. And You expect this to also be very usable as a family car. Now, as you probably noticed, the door here doesn't open up very large, which is not good if you guys plan to fit a child seat back here. But you can see the seats, they do fold down, like I said earlier, in that 60-40 arrangement. And then let me see, looks like they also offer a slight recline function. So that's definitely a nice touch. As I get inside back here, you can see the space. Toyota says you have around 35 inches of legroom, which 35 inches is perfectly acceptable. You are going to find a little bit more in some competitors. You do have almost a completely flat floor back here, which is nice. You have decent foot space underneath here. This is basically where I'd have the seat to drive for my driving position. You have rear seat air vents. You have 2 USB-Cs along with 3-level heated seats, but no cooled seats back here. You do get 2 storage cubbies, and then material quality you can see is the same from the front. Soft touch injection molded plastic, same soft text here, padded right there, of course, but with some of that gray plastic trim for the door handles and the window controls. You can see still 1 touch up down back here, which is really nice. And then over here in the center area, you can see there's an armrest that folds down, gives you dual cup holders. The headroom is a little bit compromised with the glass roof. It does take up a couple inches, I want to say, but I still have maybe a good inch or so of additional clearance. So overall, the back seat, while it isn't the best in the segment, it's certainly comparable if you guys are coming from a gas-powered RAV4. So let's be honest here, when Toyota first released the BZ4X about 3 years ago, its specs as an electric vehicle were just far below par. Toyota really needed to improve the charging speeds, they needed to improve the horsepower, they needed to also improve the range. We essentially got all of those upgrades for 2026 and then some. So now we are here driving the updated model. This is a limited trim, of course, with the all-wheel drive powertrain. So we have up to 338 horsepower. Now that's a significant jump versus the 214 that you got previously on the all-wheel drive model. Toyota says the 0 to 60 should be under 5 seconds now, which the last one that I tested with all-wheel drive did it in around 6.2 seconds. Let's go ahead and see if we can get a time that's to what Toyota claims, which is 4.9 on this little run here. Now, the one thing I noticed, this car actually doesn't have a power mode that they used to have in the pre-refresh model. So basically, to get the quickest time, you need to make sure it's not in eco mode and basically just floor the accelerator pedal and just hold on.
This Mustang's not going to be happy with
you. Wow. Holy cow, 4.42 seconds there. Now that's with it more going slightly downhill. It's about a 3% downhill gradient, but 4.4 is definitely fast. That's about 2 seconds faster versus the last BZ4X that I tested, which had the all-wheel drive configuration. So that finally puts Toyota within spitting distance of vehicles like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6, of course, the Mustang Mach-E, a Tesla Model Y. Ooh, this thing definitely feels quick now, and it has that instantaneous response that you kind of associate with an EV, of course, because it doesn't have any gears. There's just instant throttle response as soon as you put your foot down. I do notice from a dead stop, there is a slight bit of hesitation because I think Toyota must be limiting the full powers from the full power to be unleashed, at least initially, as you kind of wait for the power to ramp up. But it feels properly fast now, and I think most people who are used to driving EVs are going to really appreciate that. Now, this model that we're driving has the upgraded 20-inch wheels, which does lower the range to 278 miles, which is still up from 222 of the pre-refresh version. We are starting off here at 84% state of charge, and we're showing around 202 miles of range. I've got the AC blasting because it's literally hot as hell here in Texas. Even though it's May, it feels much hotter than that, or it feels like we're kind of in June or July with how humid it is out here. And Toyota has also added these paddle shifters here, which allows you to control up to 4 different levels of regen braking. Now, they don't offer a full, true one-pedal drive functionality where this will bring you down to a full stop, but it comes pretty darn close. And I think that people who like the control to use the paddles here, I think they'll really like that change that Toyota has done. Overall, the rest of this, dash layout, I think, is a lot cleaner. They've kind of gotten rid of those little extra plastic pieces here, so it makes that screen floating above the steering wheel a little bit easier to see. Now, the rest of the driving dynamics for the new BZ are pretty comparable to the pre-refresh model. I don't believe Toyota made too many changes in terms of the suspension tuning. I do notice that this ride quality in this vehicle, while it is softer, it also feels like it has a lot of impact harshness come through. The suspension seems to wallow about. This is definitely not what I would call like a sportier driving vehicle. It tries to skew more toward comfort, but at the same time, you can feel the weight. This is a 4,500-pound vehicle, and you kind of feel the battery or the weight of the battery packs is down low, which helps to lower the center of gravity, but it kind of has that impact harshness that you associate a little bit with EVs. It's not bad. It's just perhaps a model with the 18-inch wheels will help to kind of quiet down the ride a little bit. Visibility out of the BZ is certainly good. You can see out of the front, the side, and the rear easily, even though the rear has kind of like a tapered rear end. There's also a digital camera rearview mirror if you guys don't want to have to deal, with stuff blocking your rear view. So overall, this car is pretty comfortable and easy to drive. I also like the seats. Toyota does some of the best seats in the industry. The soft text, which is a fake leather material, feels really plush. The heat and cooled function also is nice that it's there. The cooling could be a little bit more noticeable. I mean, it is pretty hot out here in Texas, but I definitely noticed that the cooled seat isn't as cold as some of the other competitor cars that I've tested with, which has like ice cold seats. There isn't a single squeak and rattle in this interior so far, and we are driving an early pre-production car, so that's definitely a nice plus there, because remember, we are here on a really early first drive. You won't be able to get your hand on one of these vehicles until sometime later this year. But overall, if you plan to drive this around town or on the highway, it certainly is an easy car to squirt around in, because it's basically the size of a RAV4. I mean, if you guys are looking for an all-electric version of the RAV4, the BZ will certainly do that for you, but this is definitely faster than any version of the RAV4. But we're gonna try another 0 to 60 run when we find a little bit of a flatter road surface, because I wanna see if I can consistently get something in the under 5-second mark. Ooh. All right, so on that run, we got 4.69 seconds there, and that's actually with it almost on a perfectly level surface. So 4.7 seconds is a smidge faster versus what Toyota claims at 4.9, and I have to say, I am pretty pleased with that time. So I think Toyota did a fantastic job with finally giving the BZ enough power to compete with most of its rivals. Because remember, if you're buying an all-wheel drive electric premium sedan or SUV like this, you should expect a 0 to 60 time of just under 5 seconds. This is gonna be plenty fast, and for those of you who have the old BZ4X, I apologize, because you probably should upgrade to this new version. It has more range, more power, better technology, and overall, I think that Toyota has just made this car better in every imaginable way. It should have honestly been how the BZ was when it first was released, but of course, we had to wait a couple more years. But at some point, whenever I get one of these vehicles back home to test for a week, I'll test out the range in the real world. We'll do another 0 to 60 time. But here on this initial first drive in Plano, Texas, I have to say I'm pretty impressed with the overall package of this new BZ. So in the world of compact SUVs, Toyota is literally the king of sales with the RAV4. So it makes sense for Toyota to do a RAV4 sized SUV that just happens to be fully electric, and that's exactly what the original BZ4X was. But after spending the day driving the new 2026 Toyota BZ, it's pretty obvious that the company wanted to address a lot of the faults that they had with the pre-refresh model. A significant improvement in horsepower under the hood for both the single and the dual motors is certainly going to be an improvement. We got 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds, which is just crazy quick. It's a crazy improvement, almost 2 seconds faster than the previous generation. Range, well, I'll have to wait until we get one back home to test. Now you can basically get this car with up to 314 miles of range. This model here is 278, so it's not the best, but it's also not the worst. So it's kind of smack down the middle, which is kind of where Toyota finds its happy place. They've always been, excelling at nothing, but pretty good at almost everything else. In terms of the styling changes, obviously the old model had some weird elements to it, especially the name, which sounded like a fax machine. I definitely think they've tried to smooth things out for this new version. The exterior looks fine. I like this blue color, although it's a little bit too dark. I wish it was a little bit more blue as opposed to looking a little bit black. The interior also got some nice changes with the newer Lexus style 14-inch infotainment system with their latest software. It has a pretty good amount of space in the front and the rear. The cargo area is not the biggest, but in reality, the BZ is just a perfectly comfortable electric runabout SUV. And now it finally has competitive range, acceleration, and charging figures to kind of warrant the added expense over, an internal combustion powered RAV4 SUV. Now, speaking of which, if you guys are looking to get your hands on this new 2026 BZ, what's it going to cost? Because Toyota isn't ready to quite announce the pricing just yet of the updated model. The 2025 version basically starts at around $37,000, goes up to around $47,000 for the limited. So I would estimate with this new version, it's probably going to get more expensive. How much more expensive? Only time will tell. I'd probably say that this new version is probably going to start at just under $40,000. This loaded version here is probably going to be around $50,000. That seems like the sweet spot, and it's going to actually make the BZ a little bit cheaper versus a lot of its other rivals, which can get way more expensive, but they also offer, higher performance variants as well. But overall, I think this is the changes that Toyota has made is going to allow them to sell a lot more, because last year they only did around 18,500 units in the States. And in reality, if they can do 400,000 RAVs in the States, there shouldn't be a reason why they can't at least do 10% of that number. So with all the upgrades that they've made, it's definitely worth a look if you guys are looking for an electric SUV that's basically a compact size that offers plenty of space for your family, but it's also still a manageable vehicle that you can drive, you know, in urban environments and take on those longer road trips. So with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2026 Toyota BZ. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.